Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video I wanted to go over a tier list ranking I know a lot of you have been asking for, or at least would like to see to some extent, and that is a boss fun tier list. So I have gotten a few comments and some people that have been interested in seeing where I genuinely think bosses are in terms of like their fun, their value, what they offer to the game on a tier list ranking. So here I am to finally do that. I think the tiers kind of explain themselves. I don't really need to go over them, and I don't really want to have any nonsense in this type of video, so I'm gonna just get straight into it. I think I'm going to start out pretty simple here, and one I have a pretty strong stance on, and that is Mr. Chimes. Mr. Chimes has got to be one of the worst bosses in the game, period. I don't really like him in really any facet. Even that he has like the quirky, oh, memory game sort of style, I really don't like it. I think his fight is the most unnecessary fight in the entire game, considering you can just fight another mini-boss at that, and all the mini-bosses are infinitely easier than he would ever be. Even if he like theoretically had a tech to like skip a lot of the boss fight or this, that, whatever, you know, people will figure out any way to get through stuff, right? I still don't think it's worth fighting him, especially because you have some other mini-bosses in his, his trio of boss lineups, which, is Mangosteen and Piruletta. They're just easier in every facet possible than Mr. Chimes. Even if when you play it properly, or even when you are like quote unquote good at the fight, it just wastes your time. And not only that, but I personally find it really hard to deal damage to him constantly and fast enough where I'm not either wasting my time or I'm not going to get hit by some bullcrap during the 2+ minute fight that is Mr. Chimes. So I personally never have seen a reason to ever fight him in any context, and well, why wouldn't he be at the bottom for that reason, right? So that's what I think about Mr. Chimes. Now, I wanted to go in more of a random order because I don't want it to be too predictable. I'm just going to pick a boss and just go with it. So let's just pick another run-of-the-mill boss. I don't really like Cagney Carnation as much as I might let on to be. I don't know if I've ever have implied that like, oh, I really think Cagney is a great fight or has a great boss fight, because I do really like Cagney's music. But at the end of the day, his fight is very standard, very watered down Cuphead, and he doesn't really even have phases. He just has like attacks that he cycles through. That's really it. I don't really find his fight to be super engaging. It's pretty static. And even the last phase, it is cooler, I'd say. I don't really think it makes up for the rest of the boss fight. He just kind of spams seeds to you, especially on Expert when you start. And other than that, it really doesn't engage you in any other way than just shooting and hoping you get to hit most of his hitbox, because his hitbox is really, really weird. So that's even another trouble you have to deal with, is where some weapons are just not as good, or you don't really like using them because his hitbox is constantly moving and it's smaller than it probably should be. So I don't really like fighting him. Not to imply that I hate Cagney. It's just a fight that I would say he's probably even on the higher side of this tier of don't mind fighting. It's just a fight that, I don't mind fighting, but I would prefer to fight other bosses if I could help it. I think an example of that, which might surprise you guys, is Rumor Honeybottoms. I've grown to actually quite like Rumor Honeybottoms. I don't think she has the best fight in the game by any means, but I gotta say, she is definitely an underrated boss. Why do I say that? It's because, well, she has some of the most RNG in the game in terms of like how easy it is for you. If you don't get the right platforms, you're gonna have to really do some ninjutsu type movement in order to actually get full damage on during some of her phases. And if you're not doing like damage boosts constantly, or you don't do like the phase skip, it can be really hard to fight this boss without very specific weapons. But to some degree, that's kind of what I like about her. It's not that you can't use a variety of weapons for the fight, is that you have to find ways to make them good for the fight. And in this case, I think it works out well. Like for Roundabout, you can just aim up or diagonally, since it will just boomerang back around and still hit her, right? Or you'll have to use Lobber, where you can aim up too and do the same thing, or you go to the corners. And the same thing with Twist Up, you can go to the corners and hit them, and hit the boss doing that. I think it encourages you to be smarter with how you play, and I quite appreciate that from a boss. Considering most of the bosses in this game are pretty straightforward and intuitive and easy, I personally respect that Rumor tests your battleground play, if you will. That's what I mean is like how you manage yourself on the stage and how well you can manage multiple things at once, like missing platforms, unoptimal weapon, placements to shoot your weapon, stuff like that. And not to mention, she has cool techs you can pull off too, like shooting through the ground to still hit her with Pea Shooter EX, or to do the damage boost during her bullet phase, her bullet attack, so you can easily beat her last phase without even entering it when she switches to her book. I think it's pretty cool. I don't mind her at all. I don't think I would put her up into like fighting. She is just definitely the epitome of the top of this tier, which is don't mind fighting. I really don't mind fighting her. I really don't. Another boss that I genuinely like to fight, but I would say I still rank maybe a little lower than you expect, is Sally Stageplay. Now, what I mean by that is I like fighting Sally Stageplay, and I would be fine fighting her if somebody would ask me. But I would say at the end of the day, there's still a lot of fights that engage me more than Sally Stageplay. Now, what is good about Sally Stageplay, in my opinion, is that she has a lot of different things that you have to worry about, or that you can get good at, is what I should say. Where like all of her phases are different in their own ways, even though the first and second phase are pretty similar. I like the challenge of the second phase, but I think it allows you to play to the best of your ability with what you got, where like you can just like do really good damage with spread or lobber EX or just the weapon itself. You can use twist up really effectively here too. I personally really like how her fight is overall. I would make some changes, like her last phase is kind of just a joke. I wish there was more of a challenge there. I don't know how else to put it. I wish there was just more substance to it. And that's where I think I'll go to some of the negatives of the fight. I like her phases, yes, but at the end of the day, again, she is too simplistic in nature, and I think she does strike a somewhat of a balance between simplistic and challenging, but she just kind of ends up coming across as boring. And I know that's probably why people don't ever really care about her fight, nor care about her OST, or they care about ranking her high on a fun list at all. But I'm on the contrary. I personally really like Sally Stageplay, and I don't mind fighting her. I just can accept that there are way more thrilling fights in the game than Sally Stageplay. I'd maybe go as far as to say that Rumor is probably more fun than Sally Stageplay, just because of her quirkiness, but it's hard to tell. I might have to mix these two up, or mix some of the bosses in these tiers up by the end of it, but we'll get to that when we do. I think it's about time to go for some DLC stuff, and I gotta say, Howling Aces is one of those fights that I either enjoy, like I like fighting, or I'd rather not fight. I think it's safe to say that I like fighting it for now. I might put it down here later, but Howling Aces has a fun fight until you kind of get used to it. The part I like the most is phase 2, and other than that, I just find it sometimes to be a little bit like, okay, like I already been through this song and dance before. The first phase is pretty simple, it's nothing too crazy. Second phase I like just because I feel good when I'm doing it, I guess. I love like destroying the pups like really fast and like beating that phase as fast as possible. It's like almost a better version, funner version, but not as quick version as beating Dr. Call's second phase, which I'll get to that soon. The last phase with the dog, with the Saluki, it has a charm to it, sure, and I like the mechanics of it, but it doesn't exactly, oh my god, I love this fight because of this mechanic. It doesn't scream that to me. I would say at the bare minimum, it's in like the higher section of don't mind fighting, but overall, I like fighting Howling Aces. I think they're cool. I think I would personally fight other DLC bosses, and maybe even some of the mini bosses, which is why I might lower the ranking at the end, but I do like fighting Howling Aces. That's all I really have to say. Speaking of mini bosses, I think it's time to go over one of the mini bosses I actually enjoy the most, and that is the Rook. I genuinely love fighting the Rook during the King's Gauntlet. I think it's one of the most well-rounded fights, or like mini-boss fights, or challenge fights, whatever you want to call it, during the DLC aisle, and it's just so fun to kind of just dance around with the parries, especially when you're playing Miss Chalice. I personally would recommend you always play Miss Chalice when you're going against the Rook. You can absolutely have the same amount of fun if you're playing like normal Cuphead and Mugman and you play well, but Chalice is where it like really shines in terms of like fun value. It's really fun to get all those parries like in the air and just constantly rain down heads on top of the rook. I encourage everyone to give it a try or get good at it, because I know a lot of people will probably suffer on it, and I did too at the beginning when the DLC first came out. And then after a long time, I'm like, oh, well, there's an easy method to this madness. It's kind of hard to explain. It's more of a feeling. I do have a short video that explains how to get past all the King's Gauntlet, but really it's just being able to parry multiple times in a row on multiple different heads and like keeping yourself in the air as much as possible. And that's why you want to play Chalice, because she exploits that the most. And frankly, it's just way more fun and easier to do it with Chalice. So I genuinely enjoy fighting the rook, and I think everyone should give it a try and should try playing in that way and seeing if maybe their opinion would change, because I know a lot of people don't like the rook. You know, let's stick onto the DLC like mini boss sort of section. I genuinely enjoy fighting the pawns, but not to the same extent I do the rook. The pawns are a little bit too easy for me to thoroughly enjoy. It's almost like Mangosteen in the fact where like they're so easy, they can be so easy, I should say, that you can beat them in like 5 seconds flat. And that's like really rewarding in itself. But otherwise, like if you're not playing like Chalice, it can be a little bit like of a, now I wouldn't say a nuisance, but I guess tedious. Yeah, I guess tedious is the right word to use. The degree of fun varies too much. And that's why I like fighting the pawns, and I will always be fine fighting the pawns, especially if I'm playing Miss Chalice. And even when I'm playing as Cuphead and Mugman, I like it, but I can understand why people don't like it. I don't want to overrate it too much. I personally really do like the pawns, but I don't think I enjoy them so much where I would put them even over the rook or even next to the rook. I think in like at the bottom of like fighting is a fair placement. Let's get some other bosses out of the way. I'm gonna do a pair here. I'm going to do a pair of Root Pack and Goopy. Now I have to do them in a pair because I need to explain this in a very specific way. I think I've come to terms with the fact now that I think on paper, Goopy is the easier boss, but in practice, Root Pack is clearly the easier boss when you play it, because, I mean, look, all you really need to do is just stand still and shoot a weapon. That's really all you need to do. There's not much more thought that needs to be put into it than stand still, shoot your weapon. I find it too simplistic, in fact. I find it so simplistic that it becomes boring. And I mean, there's some stuff you can do to spice it up, sure, but it's really just kind of holding one button for the entire fight. Whereas Goopy, I think Goopy is easier on paper because he is quite basically doing the same attack for all of his phases when you think about it. Like, when you really boil it down, it is just genuinely the same attack over and over again. Why I think Goopy is above the Root Pack is because in practice, like I said, that's on paper, Goopy proves to be more engaging of a fight in general, and has more that you have to actually pay attention to and be good at. And I respect that from Goopy. I think that fighting Goopy is a lot more rewarding, and even though he gives you all the parries straight up, that just allows you to do even more cool shenanigans with like your EXs or your super. I quite enjoy that. Although I don't find either of their fights to be hard, and I think they're both at the end of the day boring or tedious, or at very minimum I'd rather not fight because they're that easy. At least Goopy gives you something to look forward to. And not only that, but I find the last phase with the gravestone to be really fun to play when you're using like spread EX or any EX that gets mega value when you're inside their hitbox. I like that a lot. I think that that's like the most fun you can have in the game, and you can do that technically on Chauncey during the Root Pack, but it doesn't work as well. And if you really want to get like an actual max value, you have to use like Whetstone or play Miss Chalice or something. And I don't really like that. I want to just be able to jump up, use my EX, do a Caliva swap here and there, and just destroy the phase. I find it so much more fun to do that on Goopy. I think Goopy, although they're both on the same level and just tier-wise, I think Goopy is more fun than the Root Pack. One boss that I genuinely have never liked since the beginning of the game is Mr. Wheezy. I've never wanted to fight Mr. Wheezy. Can I do it? Yes, he's easy, he's simplistic, but not only are you in the fight for like what feels like forever, but he does basically nothing to actually engage you in the fight. He just shoots fireballs, and if you're playing on, I think it might be difficulty dependent, I kind of forget at this point, I did make a Mythbusters on this, but you can just stand in one place during the fight and just not get hit by any of the fireballs. It's kind of boring. It's just a very boring boring and tedious fight, I really should put it in this tier. But I'm trying to be a little bit respectful here to at least, like to Mr. Wheezy, because Mr. Chimes, like I don't think Mr. Chimes and Mr. Wheezy share it here. I just don't think. Mr. Chimes is like a whole other level of bad. Not to say that nothing will be placed here that's a mini boss, it's more that I'm fine. I just rather not fight Mr. Wheezy. I just rather fight the other two mini bosses on the list. Mr. Wheezy just doesn't add enough to the fight for me to actually be interested in fighting him. It's as simple as that. Since we're already talking about mini bosses, I might as well add a mini boss that might surprise you all. I really do not like fighting Chips Bedigan. I really don't. He's not a bad boss fight. It's just like, if I'm gonna pick between Tipsy Troop, Chips Bedigan, or Mr. Wheezy, I would generally choose Tipsy Troop first, then I would fight Mr. Wheezy, then I'd fight Chips Bedigan. The only reason I don't like fighting Mr. Wheezy is just because he takes too long and sometimes I need the time requirement, so then I will fight Chips Bedigan if I have to. But I'd rather not, and especially without Smoke Bomb, Chips Bedigan's fight is just kind of too tedious for me to actually thoroughly enjoy. At the very least, Mr. Wheezy's fight is easy and effortless. Chips Bedigan's fight is not only tedious, but it's not as easy as you would think, because you're constantly having to dodge back and forth, back and forth. It's very easy to make a mistake, and especially when you're playing on expert, it's just a lot of I have to do this over and over again. Takes a lot of time because you have to aim very particularly to hit Chips Bedigan, where it's like at the very top of that chip stack. Not only that, but I have to constantly dodge back and forth, and then if you don't have Smoke Bomb, it gets even worse. I don't want to deal with that, man. I think I'm just gonna leave him here for now. I just think he is really boring and tedious, and again, at least Mr. Wheezy has something to make up for it. Chips Bedigan in my eyes doesn't. What might surprise you is I genuinely love Hildeberg as a boss fight. I have grown to feel that Hildeberg has one of the best fights in the entire game. Now, that might be a little hyperbolic, and it probably is. It's more that she has so much stuff that you can do during her fight that I really, really respect and enjoy. She has so many different techs you can pull off. She has so many different ways of approaching her fight. She has an engaging fight, and she has an actual challenge barrier to her, especially if you're trying to go for like an S rank. I think she offers everything that an Isle 1 boss should, albeit I think she should be harder actually. But even despite that, I think she has a very well crafted boss fight, and I think all the techniques you can pull off during her fight are so rewarding, like beyond rewarding. I mean, just damage boosts alone are so fun to do. And then you add in like Luigi swaps into that, or really any like advanced technique, or any technique, just any technique in period, okay? Any technique you can pull off, even just using something like as simple as Whetstone and spamming during like the bull phase if you're playing on regular, Just the way you can approach the fight, I've always found it very interesting and respectable. So having gotten better at the game and better at Hildeberg, she is just the right amount of challenging for an Isle 1 boss. I just wish, as I guess a tryhard, or as somebody who's played this game forever, I just want it to be harder for the sake of having me being more challenged than what I'm already good at. That's really it. It's literally, that's like, wow, the worst thing I can say about her is I wish she was harder. Like, right? Like, if that's all I can think about for like as a critique for the boss, then I clearly enjoy the fight, don't I? I think she's really cool. I think she has a lot going for her. I encourage you to get good at the fight, and then once you get good at the fight, then I think your mind will change if you don't like her as a boss fight. Let's pick another random boss. Let's just go eeny, meeny, miny. We'll go Captain Brinybeard. Captain Brinybeard is, I think, a very underrated fight. I'm going to make it very clear that the mini bosses are probably going to be at the lower section of all these tiers, because frankly, I don't think a mini boss just genuinely outweighs like all bosses in a tier, even the ones below it. I'm just trying to show you that this is like the pawns I like fighting. That doesn't necessarily mean I like fighting the pawns over Cagney. I want to represent that out of the mini bosses in the game, I like fighting the pawns, probably some of the most out of all of them. That doesn't genuinely mean that I prefer the pawns over Rumor. But yeah, in terms of Captain Brinybeard, I think Captain Brinybeard has like just a right amount of I wouldn't say complicated, but he has a right amount of like skill expression that you have to have in the game. He's pretty simplistic, and I honestly wish he was difficult. I honestly wish he was way more difficult. And I think I can think of some cons about him. I think there are some techs you can pull off that make him easier, or that alleviate some of the boringness of the fight, if you will. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do to make the fight more fun, but otherwise, I think it's a fight that is genuinely underrated, and I personally like fighting Captain Brinybeard. Will I fight him over most other bosses in the game, or sorry, most other bosses in this tier and above? Probably not. I'd probably have him be lower in this like fighting tier, but I think it's safe to say that I enjoy fighting Captain Brinybeard, and I like what he has to offer. Although sometimes I can get a little annoyed at him, especially during like the Sea Dog attack. I really don't like that. And I wish like the Shark attack was actually a problem, in that the Squid attack was actually a problem. Those are essentially non-problems. And I just like speedrunning Captain Brinybeard too, to be frank, so that probably adds to it. Overall, I really enjoy Captain Brinybeard's fight, and his music is hella underrated. Really, really underrated. I encourage you to listen to his theme. I think it's very good. You know, I gotta say, Glumstone has gotta be probably one of my favorite DLC bosses. He is like the best introduction to the DLC, in which he is pretty much. The first bosses that you're meant to fight are Glumstone and Moonshine Mob, and I think Glumstone is a great introductory boss because he is genuinely difficult. He is genuinely difficult when you're first fighting him, and he's genuinely difficult when you're first trying to play on Expert and S-rank him. He has a lot that you have to worry about and that you have to take into account, and it can get a little bit overwhelming. I used to struggle a lot on this fight, and maybe sometimes I still do. But once you learn the fight, it is so rewarding to beat him without like taking a hit or getting an S rank. It is very rewarding because you know that like you actually tried and you really put your effort to get that requirement. It's more about what you have to do and the skill expression you have to have in order to beat him effortlessly, or in a timely manner, or even in an efficient manner. You have to actually have some skill. No, not to even mention the techs you can pull off and the little tips and tricks you can do to make the fight easier. He has a lot of things going for him. I think it's all I have to say. He has a lot of things going for him. He has a good fight, long phases, good phases at that, unique phases, and you can't even lie. His music slaps, A, and B, you did not expect to get eaten by him, did you? Okay, you did not expect to get eaten by him in his last phase to fight his like stomach ulcer or whatever you want to call that. It's unique, it's fun, it's quirky. What is there not to like about Glumstone, in my opinion? Let's get on to some Isle 2 bosses. I haven't ranked any of those yet. I think I'm going to start with a pretty controversial one here. I don't like Baroness von Bonbon. I don't. Sue me. Again, sue me. I don't like her. I don't think she is a very fun boss fight. It's one of those things that I'd rather fight any other boss on the Isle 2 than her. I find her to get a little bit tiring after some time. I'm not a big fan of her music either. Not to say that it's bad, but it's just one of those more non-interesting themes to me personally. It doesn't really get my blood going. It doesn't get me jiving to it. It doesn't get me dancing to it. It's just kind of like, it's a boss theme. I like it. It fills its purpose. You're kind of just going over the same mini bosses over and over again, and even then the mini bosses are either A, not hard, or B, very uninteresting. Not to say that they're like terrible mini bosses. I'm not even trying to say I hate the fight. All of this is me saying that I just prefer to fight something else. I really would. I do like the end of her fight, to be honest. I do like at the very end where where the castle's moving and all that. I think that's pretty cool. You can do a lot of damage before that, with spread EX, go up to her, hit her a lot. I like that I can parry the menthol at the end, the little mint thing, and get your parry requirements, so it's really easy to get your requirements for the fight. But I think I don't really want to fight her if I had to choose between all the bosses on Isle 2, or even the majority of bosses in the game. She would be at the bottom of the barrel. Am I being harsh? Yeah, I think I am. I think it's to make a statement than to be a jerk, if you will. Ruby and Crocus is a fight that I used to really not like because I was kind of a baby. But now I do. I really do enjoy the fight. Do I enjoy the fight a lot? It's not top 5 fights, but it is a very well-crafted fight. I do have personal problems with it. Like, I think the second phase could be a bit more interesting, and I personally think the last phase could use some work in terms of like engagement, because it just feels like you're kind of just the monotonous flipping the lever on your slot machine and just like keep on going until you win. I guess that might be the point of it, because it is literally a slot machine, that's kind of the point. But it's almost too much. It's just too like, okay, yeah, just, shoot some shots, do whatever, wait for the lever to come down so I can parry it, rinse and repeat. It can get a little monotonous, and I think the chip attacks are not challenging enough for me to be excited to fight them. The only one that's actually challenging or that takes some sort of skill expression is the orange attack, the tiger attack, where you have to deal with the balls jumping up and down in the center of the chips. The other ones are pretty boring, and I also wish that there was just more to the fight. I don't know, there's something about Ruby and Croaks that feels a little incomplete. Not to say that it is a incomplete boss fight or it's a bad boss fight. Of course it's not. I mean, look how high it's ranked. I was debating on putting it in the high of like fighting, because although I do enjoy the fight for what it is, especially the techs you can pull off during the fight are fun to do, it's a fight that I think has its drawbacks, and because it has drawbacks, or I think it has drawbacks, I might put it here just for safety reasons. At the end, I might change some fights here and there to accurately reflect what my actual opinions are, but for now, I think I'll play it safe and I'll just put him in the top of like fighting. One that you might not expect me to put up here is Phantom Express. For an IL-3 boss, it should be harder. Otherwise, it is a very well-crafted boss fight that has just enough difficulty for it to deserve to be on Island 3, or the Isle 3 I should say. But, you know, once you get good at it, it's effortless. It's not hard. It really isn't. It's pretty easy, especially when you're bringing certain loadouts like Converge. Yeah, say goodbye to any troubles you had during the fight, period, if you just bring Converge. Some weapons make this fight way too easy. And that's not even necessarily a bad thing, it's just a point to be made. And I think that Phantom Express is one of those perfectly crafted boss fights where like it makes you feel good for beating them. Because you gotta go through like 3 phases of boss fights, you know, before you get to the end where you have to fight the train itself. And I think how the fight plays out too is very interesting, where each, I guess, section of the train has its own way you have to approach it. And I quite enjoy that, where it's not as simple as just holding a button and you win. It's like, well, I have to actually worry about different things in the fight, like the pumpkins that drop, those technically considered iron ingots or whatever. They're pink, I don't know why. But they drop those iron ingots, and then you have to deal with the skull in the second section or the second phase of the fight, going back and forth between all the different things while you have to worry about the pumpkins and moving the platform. And then the third phase has to do with those lollipop ghouls. I really like that section the most because it has like where you can do the most damage and the most weapon EXs. You can really shine during that phase. And then the last phase is like a complete expression of your actual skill in the game, where there is an easy way of doing the fight, doing like the end of the fight, but overall that I think challenges you just enough that I think once you get good at it, you'll start to really enjoy fighting it because you're good at it. It's not like Root Pack where once you're good at it, or like once you easily figure out what you need to do, it's boring. It's like, no, you figure out what you do for Phantom Express and it's fun because you figured out what you need to do for Phantom Express. That's the only way I can explain it. I wanted to go for a bit of a controversial pick. Well, not controversial, more like unprecedented. And that's the Devil. I like the Devil. Believe it or not, I do like the Devil. I'm unsure if I should put it in the low section of enjoy or high of like fighting, because I think there are quite a few cons to the Devil fight. The first one being the first phase. Sometimes I really hate going against the first phase. But other than that, it's a fun fight, and I do genuinely like fighting it. I don't really like the first phase. It's a phase where I'd rather get past it than be in it. And that's a shame, because this is the only boss fights, if not the only boss fight in the entire game, that has 2 themes made specifically for the boss fight. And you only get to hear the first part of it for like, what, 30 seconds, 40 seconds max? Unless you're intentionally being dense and you're playing for a very, very long time. You only get to listen to Admission to Perdition for like 30 seconds, and it's a cool theme, and it's a really cool mashup, but you never get to hear it. You don't really get to experience enough of the first phase for it to be not only fun but enjoyable from a theme standpoint, because I want to get to the cool stuff of the theme, but it just ends up being all right at the end of the day, in my opinion. And then you get to the bottom section, or sorry, when you fall down to like the rest of the phases. I think the second phase is fun, but then I wish it would change up a little bit after that, like where the third phase is just doing the same exact thing but just with a slightly different circumstance, you know? And then the last phase is just way too easy, way too effortless. I think they were expecting people to like have a really hard time with that one platform and the whole like ship falling down. I don't know what they're doing, honestly. It's way too easy. I wish it would be more difficult. But even despite everything I just said, it is still a fun fight to conquer. It's still a fun fight to play. The second theme that plays when you fall down is a banger. Banger enough. I think it gets weighed down a bit because of the fight itself, where you don't get to hear both the themes for a very long time. The second theme is pretty good. The first theme is good too. I'm not trying to overrate the fight too much, but I do gotta say I like fighting them. I do enjoy fighting them, I should say. But I have been saying like a lot, so I might honestly be subconsciously thinking it should be here. So I think I'm just gonna listen to that for now. I think I'm gonna play it safe and put it here. It's a fight that I do enjoy, but I think has too many cons. I like the themes, but I don't like the themes because of how they're played and how much you get to actually listen to them. Overall, it's a fight that I like fighting, and I would fight on my own. But frankly, there are fights I would play before the devil. There are definitely fights I would play before the devil. One of them, surprisingly, being Beppy the Clown. I really like Beppy the Clown. Beppy the Clown is a perfect boss fight in the game, where how it's structured, it gives you everything you'd want to see in a boss fight. It has a fun and interesting character that you get to explore. All the phases are different in their own ways. They challenge you in different ways, and you get to have a lot of variety in how you play. Beppy is one of the fights where really any weapon and every weapon can and will work for at least some section of the fight, and it makes it feel like you actually have a purpose to your loadout, where it's like, okay, I bring Spread for the second and final phase, whereas I bring something like Twist Up or Roundabout or Charge for the first and third phase. I like that you get to have variety in how you approach the fight. Not only that, but I think the damage thresholds for all his phases are really, really well done, and it introduces just the right amount of complexity and challenge where you can conquer it easily once you get good at it, but it's still, even after years and years of playing, can be a big challenge to do things under certain restrictions, like only one weapon or hitless or deathless or something like that, where like there's actual pressure on you. Beppy kind of exploits that pressure, if you ask me, because he has a lot of things that can go wrong. He really does. He has a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not playing to the best of your ability. And I think because of that, I really enjoy the structure of his boss fight, and I really think he has one of the best boss fights in the entire game. I think it's about time we get to some more mini bosses. Let's start out with a pretty hot topic here, and that is the Bishop. I really do not like fighting the Bishop. I'd probably fight the Bishop over Chip Spedigan, but nonetheless, I really don't like fighting the Bishop. If there's any one mini-boss I would rather not fight, it would be the Bishop. And that's because I just find his fight to be really boring and very just not engaging. It's engaging for like bad reasons. It's engaging because you have to really go out of your way to like dash everywhere and hit all the candles, I should say. And I don't feel like it really adds to my gameplay. I don't really feel like I'm getting better at the game, or I'm getting better at the fight from doing it. Whereas someone like, I might as well shrink this right now. Where someone like the Queen, while I'd rather not fight the Queen, I think she does have a good amount of skill expression, and I think she has some quirkiness to her that I like, where, you have to predict where the Queen is gonna be or not be, because she'll like fake you out, she'll like pump fake you like it's freaking basketball or something. It kind of throws you off. I quite enjoy that she has some skill expression to her. Bishop, yeah, by technicality he has skill expression, but it's not very fun or very engaging if you ask me. So I think Bishop is pretty boring or tedious, and I don't really like fighting him. I'd rather fight pretty much any other mini-boss than him if I had to choose. He's not a terrible mini-boss. I can definitely deal with him, and I'm fine with picking him if I have to, or, just casually, like, I'll fight the Bishop, why not? But I wouldn't usually pick him over many other bosses or mini-bosses in the game entirely. Then we get to the Queen. I already kind of, delved into her a bit. I'd rather not fight against the Queen. I think all the other bosses during the King's Gauntlet are much more engaging and fun, but I still think the Queen has a place in like the fun list of it all. That's why I think she is the high period of I'd rather not fight, because at the end of the day, while I would rather pick the rook or the pawns, for example, to fight, I don't mind too much fighting the queen. It's just more like, okay, we'll just get this over with. She's easy enough where it's not a problem. That's fighter. Where bishop is just kind of annoying to fight, and he can be not hard, but just like, oh my god, I have to go all the way over here for this candle, now I have to go all the way over here for this candle. I don't like going back and forth. With the queen, she can be a little annoying, especially if you're missing a lot, or she is faking you out a lot, or really any sort of circumstance. It can be kind of annoying. I think she's fine. I think she's a fine fight. She's borderline, don't mind, but I'd rather not fight her at the end of the day. You might as well round out that mini boss list with the knight. The knight is definitely a mini boss I do not mind fighting. I do not mind fighting the knight at all. It's more that I prefer the rook and the pawns. I would say I probably even put him here because I do really like fighting the knight. He has just the right amount of skill expression where when you play it right, you really feel good at the game, but it can be a little too repetitive for my taste. The fight itself is pretty set in stone. I don't know how to put it. It's like if he does X, do Y. If he does A, do B. If he does G, do F. I don't know. Like it's just kind of like it feels like I'm going through a formula with this fight. Where at the end of the day, I like fighting him, sure, but at least for like the pawns, I can like really fully express myself, and especially with the rook, I can fully express myself. The knight feels more like a formula, and that's might not even be a problem for some people. Just for me, it just makes it just a little bit less than the pawns for me. You might think I'd put Mortimer Freeze pretty damn low because of how my opinions have been of him recently, but at the end of the day, I really don't mind fighting him. I really don't. It's more that his requirements make him a beast of a boss to fight against in terms of like, going for his requirements is very tedious. But if you're just playing the fight to play the fight, he's fun. Like, he's cool, he's quirky, he has a lot of unique stuff that's going for him. You know, I would personally fight other bosses before him, but that doesn't mean he's a bad boss or I'd rather not fight him. It's just more that, you know, I just prefer other mechanics of other boss fights. It's as simple as that. Yeah, he's a good boss fight. I just hate having to do his requirements. If you have to do his requirements, man, just buckle up and be ready for a sour taste in your mouth because you're going to be hating the parry requirement. Some people might even suffer with the time requirements if you're really taking your time like to get all the parries. That's not really a problem though. It's mostly the parry requirement and the HP requirement because sometimes you'll take a hit in the stupidest way possible and oh boy, like just get ready for all the stupid hits, okay? It can be kind of annoying to deal with, but Mortimer Freeze does not deserve to be that low. I'm not that biased, okay guys? I am not that biased. All things considered, he is a fine fight, and I don't mind fighting him. Let's get to some more IL-2 bosses. You know, Wally Warbles is a fine fight overall, but I don't really like him over a lot of the other bosses I'd rather fight in the game because Wally is just kind of like hard. That's really it. Yeah, there's some cool techs you can pull off, there's some cool stuff you can do, but he just kind of feels like a challenge barrier, and that's it. Not to say that he has no character or he has no like fun stuff about him. I think I'm just kind of too used to playing him on expert, where it just kind of feels a little bit samey, where I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm trying to get through him and that's it. But even on regular, I would argue that he's just there to be an obstacle, and that's mostly it. He is not a bad fight by any stretch of the imagination. While I do respect for what it is, there are a lot of other bosses I find more interesting to fight than him. Even with all the techs that you can pull off during his fight, they're just not enough for me to be like, oh boy, I can't wait to fight Wally Warbles. I'm more like, okay, let's get ready to fight Wally Warbles and get past him. Okay, you know, get in the mindset, pass him, that's it. Of course, especially on expert, that's what I'm considering. On regular, I mean, the regular, every boss is pretty damn easy, I'm not gonna lie. On expert is where I personally find the most fun with these bosses. It feels like I kind of want to just get through the boss rather than, oh man, I quite enjoyed this boss fight. I don't know why I feel like that. It's a bit of a weird bias I have for him, I can't lie. That's why he is very, very middle of the road for me. He is I don't mind fighting him. Sometimes I'd rather not fight him, sometimes I enjoy fighting him, and that's just how I like it. He is like the medium rare of my tier list. He is just the middle. Now, with what I just said about Wally Warbles, you might expect me to think that Jimmy would be right along with him, but believe it or not, Jimmy is by far one of my favorite fights in the entire game. And, that's gotta be honestly because of the techs you can pull off, and how, like, you can beat his phases really fast and this and that. But I think his fight is just really well done. Yeah, he has a lot of phases. Yeah, people might consider him to be kind of a slow boss fight, kind of like a slow burn, a fight that you kind of just want to get through. But personally, I think all the skill expression and the text you can pull off make up for that. And so much so that I enjoy fighting him. I really enjoy pulling off those techs. Especially if you've seen any of the live streams, I really like doing them. I try to go for them as much as humanly possible. There's so many small tips and tricks for Jimmy that you can pull off. Either A, greatly enhance the fight for you in terms of skill expression, or B, in terms of difficulty. And I really appreciate that about him. I gotta say, I really do appreciate that about him. So in terms of actually enjoying the fight, if you're not going for any requirements specifically and you're just trying to have fun especially, Jimmy is a great fight to practice on and get good at. I highly encourage you to get good at his fight. Look at some videos, look at my videos, look at all the techs I pull off, look at the live streams even, and just try to emulate that and see if you have the same amount of fun that I do, or you end up having more of a fun time because, oh wow, I can actually get past these sections without feeling like I'm gonna die. I feel like that is it for a lot of people, where they feel like, oh man, it's just so much bullcrap I have to deal with. I don't want to get through it. But you can get through it, and there are a lot of ways to get through it, so you can get good at the fight. It is not as hard as you think it is. Look at some videos, look at my channel, check out the videos, check out the shorts, and I think after you emulate what I do, you might enjoy the fight a lot more than you did before. We're going to go through a slight lightning round here. I'm not going to go too fast, but just fast enough where I'm not spending an exuberant amount, is that how you use that word? A lot of time on the boss. I don't mind fighting Angel and Demon, but I'd rather not fight them more than I would fight them. It's just because it's a very side boss of the game where like it's just completely unnecessary to do it if you just want to play the game normally. If you want Divine Relic, then of course you have to fight it, but even then you can just cheese it. So like it's not even like something you really have to engage with. But I really do respect how the fight works. I like the quirk of it. I like that it challenges you, and I think that's all I have to say about it. It's a cool fight. I'd rather not fight it most of the time, but hey, I give it some brownie points. I'll tell you that. Now, I think by my own definitions, you'd think that Mangosteen would be in the boring/tedious, but he's almost so easy and so simple that I end up just like him at the end of the day. I just end up like fighting him. I probably would put him actually by the bottom of the like fighting because he's just too simple for him to be like super engaging like these two are. He is almost so simple that it allows you to just kind of do whatever the hell you want. It's almost like you're in a sandbox of a boss fight, of a mini boss fight during this section where you could easily beat Mangosteen in like 5 seconds, like 8 seconds flat. And I quite enjoy that, where you kind of just, during this boss gauntlet that is the King Dice fight, you end up having kind of a freebie or kind of a break at the end. You pick Mangosteen and it's just fun. It's just fun. You get to bully him. You get to bully an 8-ball. What else is there to say? Pureletta, on the other hand, I'm not that big of a fan of her. I can't lie. I'm not that big of a fan of her. Without Smoke Bomb, she just ends up being more tedious than anything else. So I'd personally rather not fight Pureletta if I could help it. That's not to say I hate her, especially with Smoke Bomb. She's not that big of a deal. I just find her to be kind of uninteresting. Like, I don't find her to be that charming. I think without Smoke Bomb, she becomes even more tedious. And even with Smoke Bomb, I just don't feel like it doesn't have the same thrill as I do with Mangosteen. So at the end of the day, I'd rather not fight Pureletta if I can manage it. Although I will definitely fight Pureletta over Mr. Chimes any day of the week. Oh, don't get me wrong. I still would rather not fight Pureletta if I could just easily fight Mangosteen, which I like fighting, as you see on the tier list. So yeah. Hocus Pocus or Hoppus Pocus, depending on how you want to say it. I don't really like Hoppus Pocus or Hocus Pocus. I call him Hocus Pocus personally. I don't really like fighting him that much, especially without Smoke Bomb. I'd probably put him like right here. If it's my choice to fight one of the mini bosses without anything influencing me, I would probably pick Hocus Pocus last because he's just kind of repetitive. He just does the same two things over and over again. And especially if you're playing on expert, it is literally just spam, 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 spam. It's like engaging for the wrong reasons. It's engaging because you're constantly under threat of some stupid attack that he cycles through every once in a while. I don't want skulls constantly closing in on me 24/7. It's not something that I personally find enjoying. I just find it to be whatever. I can deal with it if I'm using Smoke Bomb. I do it because it's just very effortless when you're using Smoke Bomb, but otherwise, I personally find the other two fights actually way more thrilling, so let's go over them right now. I like Pippin Dot. I actually don't mind Pippin Dot anymore. I used to not like Pippin Dot. I used to think they were kind of a little difficult, but I have changed my mind on this. I think Pippin Dot are a pretty well-balanced fight where they have some difficulty, they have some stuff that you have to worry about, but otherwise they're not a hard boss. They're really not. And if I had to choose purely on fun value, we're not including like I'm speedrunning a fight here. I'm like I'm not only speedrunning bosses in this game, you know, it's everything considered. I don't mind fighting Pippin Dot. I really don't. I'll fight them if I have to. I just personally, if I'm using Smoke Bomb, I'd rather fight Hocus Pocus, because then Hocus Pocus is just 2 attacks and I'm just easily dodging one of them entirely. I'm avoiding an attack entirely. So from like a logistics standpoint, of course I'm going to fight Hocus Pocus. But if I'm talking in terms of fun, I find Pippin Dot to be a much more enjoyable boss fight. But you know what I find even more fun? I find Fear Lap to be even more enjoyable. For some reason, I have this leaning towards plain bosses in like my top ranks. For some reason, I find Fear Lap to be one of the most fun Keen Ice mini bosses, and I think that's just because of how the fight works. I think it's almost overwhelming for like the best reasons possible. It's kind of weird to explain. It's kind of a weird way of saying it. I find taking down his health fun, and you know, dodging the presents and the horseshoes and the Ghost Riders, or the Ghost Rider is pretty fun. I find it very engaging and for not too overwhelming. I said it was overwhelming. It's not that overwhelming to me. It's more that it's a challenge and you actually got to pay attention. It's overwhelming compared to the other mini bosses, but not overwhelming in the sense where like I am not wanting to do the fight or I'm dreading the fight. I like it. It's almost like I like the pressure. I find it satisfying to beat Fear Lap, and because I find it satisfying to beat Fear Lap, I personally think it's the most fun mini boss fight out of the majority of the Keen Dice mini boss fights. Not above Mangosteen, because Mangosteen is like bullying. Fear Lap is more like I feel satisfied when I beat him. Tipsy Troop is another one of those fights where I genuinely enjoy Tipsy Troop, and I think maybe even like slightly more than Fear Lap. It's kind of a hard toss-up here, I'm not gonna lie. I think at the end of the day, I think what really influences me putting Tipsy Troop above Fear Lap is that I would way rather fight Tipsy Troop than the 2 other mini bosses in their section. Like straight up. I will always fight Tipsy Troop if I can manage it. The Fear Lap section, on the other hand, well, I would way rather fight Hocus Pocus if I'm going for like an actual strategic run. Or sometimes I'd rather fight Pippin Dot if I want specific parries or something like that, for example. Or if I want to have, I don't know, sometimes honestly I just rather would fight Pippin Dot. I don't know why. So I think that's going to be the influence here for me, where like the Fear Lap section of bosses or selection of bosses, there's just other bosses that I would pick than Fear Lap, but during Tipsy Troop section, I will always pick Tipsy Troop. Always pick Tipsy Troop. So why would I not put him above him? That's my reasoning to this. I think it's time we just kind of get rid of Aisle 3 altogether. Werner Vermin, believe it or not, is not like super high up, like up here. I think it rightfully deserves to be like right here, because it's for Aisle 3, it's kind of too simplistic of a fight where it's not formulaic per se, but it's like you kind of just play the fight the same old whenever you do it. But that's kind of why it's fun. It's fun to like destroy Werner Vermin. It's kind of mean to say, but it is fun to destroy Werner Vermin, especially during the last phase where you can do like the spread EXs before the Kassenwagen officially comes out. And then during the second phase with the flamethrower, you can dodge it pretty in fun ways. You can use twist up on the ground and just cheese it, or you can dodge and do an EX, or jump up and do an EX to dodge it entirely. I like what it adds to the game. Not only do I like what Werner Vermin adds to the game, but I like that he is a very like middle of the ground boss fight in terms of difficulty. For an Aisle 3 boss, should he be more difficult? Probably. Otherwise, I like his fight. I really do like his fight. I love fighting him. I love destroying him too. I love doing all those spread EXs. I love exploiting like Caliva swaps or like damage boosts or anything that makes me do more damage. You don't need to do damage boosts for Werner, but at the very minimum, you could do like Caliva swaps and or just a ton of like full spread EX damage or like twist up damage when he's like switching between some of his phases, like from the second to the last one, or like you can spam twist up EX during the transition to the second phase and get a ton of damage early on. There's just a lot of ways to approach the fight, and oh yeah, not to mention Werner Vermin is a very loadout friendly boss. You can kind of bring whatever loadout you want and it will work most of the time. I can't think of a single weapon that's just like, oh, that is a bad weapon for Werner, because I don't think think any weapon is bad for Werner. Any weapon can work, even Converge. I don't know why you would use Converge, maybe for the last phase, but otherwise, like, why not? Why not bring Converge? It's fun, it's cool, it does its job. Werner's a fun fight. He's very welcoming. He has a good skill expression, good loadout selection, and he is just simple but effective. Then you have Calamaria. You know, Calamaria would normally, and like maybe some other tier lists, be like high up, but I'm not the biggest fan of Calamaria. I think she is a little bit too RNG dependent in terms of the fun of it. Not even that, it's more of also that the second phase is just quite literally some BS that you gotta deal with. Like, that's all I really feel like I can say about it. It's just, okay, let's get past this already. Okay, yeah, petrify me, I can't do anything about this bullcrap, whatever, don't care. Let's just get past it. Second phase is just a little bit too annoying for me to want to fight continuously over and over again. First phase is really long too, for like, feels like no reason. It's a fine phase, like phase 1 is fine in comparison. It's just a little bit of a nitpick I have. And then phase 3 is just kind of like phase 2, but like better. Like, I wish that's how phase 2 was in the first place. I think overall, all of her phases are just a bit they're alright. I don't mind fighting it. I just would rather pick some other bosses and deal with their bullcrap than the RNG on Calamaria. It's just as simple as that. You know, we've been talking a lot about mini bosses, but I haven't even mentioned King Dice yet himself. With everything considered about King Dice, I like his fight. I really like his fight, but I don't think it's like super high up. I think it's like right here. I like King Dice. I think the culmination of everything you have to do to beat King Dice is very fitting for the end of the game and where he's at. It's definitely a boss that tests your skill and allows you to really express yourself in terms of your play style and how good you are at the game, really. Because if you're good at the game, King Dice is really easy. But if you're not, then he's hard, and then you keep on playing King Dice, and then you end up becoming better as a player because of it, because he challenges you in that way. Especially with the parries. Some people just are apparently not good at parries because they don't like the last phase. They don't like the actual King Dice part of the fight. If anything, I wish King Dice fought you more. I wish there was more to fighting King Dice than just mini bosses, which is why I don't think he's like a super duper enjoyable boss fight, because I wish there was more to him. I wish it wasn't just mini bosses. He's a fun fight. I think he's a really good culmination of everything that you need to get good at in the game, and he tests you. I think he's a very well designed boss fight. What can I say? Well, I might as well go over it now. I really like Moonshine Mob. I really do. I really like Moonshine Mob. Do I love them? Do I love them so much that I enjoy them? That's debatable. That's why I think it's high of like fighting, because I think Moonshine Mob's fight is a little bit, once you know what to do, you know what to do. You beat the first phase, it's kind of the exception. First phase, you know, beat it however you can, whatever. Second phase, you can just cheese it. It's just kind of simple. It's just kind of like running around in circles, literally and figuratively. It just brings Smoke Bomb, and you're just kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. And then if not, then you just kind of go around, shoot, go around, you know, move around, shoot, move around, shoot. It's alright, it's fine. It's just not my cup of tea sometimes. Like, I prefer to bring Smoke Bomb if I can. And the last phase can be a little bit tedious with the Anteater. I personally find it to be sometimes just like, oh, okay, we get it. Like, I know you're moving a lot, haha, and like I can barely get damage sometimes. This actually is a good segue to talk about the weapon loadout. The weapon loadout for Moonshine Mob is a little bit pickier than you might imagine. I think sometimes you have to bring some specific weapons, or like at least a specific weapon, for him to be easy. And that's easily like either a homing weapon or a long range weapon. Like, you really gotta bring a long range weapon to the fight. And not like a pea shooter, like not pea shooter, because pea shooters I feel like sometimes too inconsistent. You gotta bring like something like roundabout, or you gotta bring charge, or even sometimes converge if you want to do that. And I don't know. Like, I might be saying a lot of negatives about the fight. I'm trying to get them over with, because I do genuinely love the fight and how it's structured overall. I just sometimes can it can get a little bit tedious at times, where I'd rather just get past the Anteater phase, or I'd rather get past the Ladybug phase, you know? But I'm really glad they brought back the cut concept from the King Dice fight, which is the little sound attack with the, you know, during the second phase, the Ladybug for Moonshine Mob. That was a cut out phase, or like part of something for King Dice, where he had like a little trio of things that he was going to have available to him at some point. I don't really know all the details, but the point is that they brought back cut out content for Moonshine Mob, and they made it a phase, and I'm really glad they did, because it's a cool phase. It really is. I just think sometimes it can be a little bit boring. I like the fight. It's a good fight. I just think there's some things about the fight that I don't enjoy sometimes, and because of that, I don't think it's like top of the top for me. I still like the fight, and I will pick the fight the majority of the time if I need to pick a random DLC boss. I gotta say, Chef Saltbaker, you might expect to be like super high up, but I gotta say, I think Chef Saltbaker sits at the top of I like fighting. And that is because of one main reason. His last two phases are pretty boring. His last two phases are pretty boring and or tedious, even. Let me get something straight. First two phases have got to be some of the best phases in the entire game, period. I find them so engaging, right amount of difficulty, the right amount of challenge and skill expression are present during those two phases. And then for some reason, it feels like it just gets thrown out of the window during the last two. The last two phases, like the third phase is like a non-phase. He has like 100 health and he's jumping around with like a saw on the ground for some reason. Like, what the frick? Like, why? Where did this come from? The last phase is just kind of like limiting because you kind of have to bring a homing weapon for it to be effective during that phase. And I find it to be kind of like it just like I don't want to fight this phase. Like I don't want to fight this phase, especially without a homing weapon. It just feels like I'm just okay holding the shoot button, jumping from platform to platform until I beat it. You know, it's kind of just an unnecessary time sink. But other than that, the whole fight, I think if I have to grade the entire fight overall, including the music, by the way. I've been forgetting to mention music, because Moonshine Mob's music is banger, and that is, I'm not gonna lie, that's definitely affecting the tier list, okay? And Chef Saltbaker, oh my god, his music is so good, and the way it transitions to all the different phases, oh my god, it's so good, it's so good. By far one of the best music compositions in the entire game, and I think the fight really does complement it. I really like the fight, I like the music, I just wish the last two phases were more compelling. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. Esther is my favorite fight in the entire game. I gotta say it. I think she just adds so much to the game. I think she adds so much character, and she adds the right amount of difficulty to the game while also interesting and not too overwhelming, in my opinion. You might think she's overwhelming at first because that's kind of how she's meant to be, but it is very, very manageable once you get down to the brass tacks, okay? It's something that I really respect out of it, where it's one of those deceitfully not overwhelming fights. I don't know how else to put it. Like, you think that, oh my god, there's so much I have to deal with. It's like, no, you play like this, you play in a certain way, you get good at this part of the fight, you do this instead of that, you go for these types of like damage boosts or like techs and stuff, like using your super at this moment or using your EX at this moment, standing at this specific position, or like flying in this specific position. And it's really fun to get through it. I really love it. And her phases are so unique too. I mean, come on, think of another boss fight in the game that has as many unique phases as Esther's does. I personally can't think of it. Maybe Jimmy, like literally. Esther just has such a unique boss fight, and I can't help but respect that from her. Oh, and her music is good, by the way. I don't care what anyone says. I love her music. Music is absolutely top tier. And that combination of both her fight being so unique and cool and fascinating, and her music just being that good too, makes her gotta be one of the best boss fights in the game. Maybe not top number 1 for you guys, but I think she should be at least top 10, if not top 5 in the game. Let's get past these last two pretty easily. I like fighting Grim Matchstick. I just think he has a lot of problems with him. The problem with Grim Matchstick is that you have to bring a very specific weapon or two for it to be tolerable. If you do not bring those weapons to the fight, it is torture. And I will tell you again one more time, it is torture to fight him without lobber and or charge. It really does suck. I really do not like fighting him without either of those weapons. It's like you have to fight with those weapons. And I do not like that restriction. I do not like that the fight forces you to be very specific. But I feel like that is kind of the purpose of him in a sense. But that doesn't mean I like it. That doesn't mean I think it's a great addition to the game. I think it's a necessary addition, but one that I wish had a little bit more leeway to it. You know, okay, you know, lobber clearly shines here, but you don't have to use lobber. You could just use these other 3 weapons. But no, you gotta use lobber. If you're not using lobber or charge for the second or last phase, you are going to suffer. Otherwise, it's a fun fight. I like it when you're bringing those weapons and even if you're going to deal with the challenge of not bringing lobber or charge, I think it's a fun fight. I do. I think it's fun enough. I just think it's drastically less fun if you don't bring those weapons. Bringing those weapons though, it's a good fight. It's just on the low end of like fighting. I might even put it right here instead. Right here, because of that's how much the loadout matters for the fight. And to some degree I respect it, but to some degree I don't, and it's kind of hard for me to balance that. So the bottom of like fighting, it might be a little bit drastic to some, but I think I'm gonna leave it here. And last but not least is Dr. Call's Robot. Dr. Call's Robot is a fight I've grown to enjoy over the years. I used to really not like it, and as you guys know, I still struggle with the last phase to this day. I still struggle with it. But even despite that, even despite all the troubles I have with it, I really like the formula of the boss. I really do. I don't like the second phase though. The second phase could be cooler, could be more enjoyable, could be longer. I mean, it's literally just use a super and you kind of just beat the phase immediately. I don't like that personally. But I like the first phase. I like how you have to do it. I like the method to the madness that is Dr. Call. And even the last phase, even though I struggle with the last phase, I've grown to enjoy it. I want to get better at it. And even though like I am generally good at it in a sense where like I don't die all the time when I'm playing Dr. Call, it's just more that I end up still making stupid mistakes even after all this time playing Dr. Call. And I don't usually make those mistakes with any other boss but Dr. Call. There's just something about Dr. Call that I always struggle with doing something movement-wise on his fight. Maybe that's because I'm playing on keyboard. That's not really an excuse, but it's just more like I love keyboard. I way prefer to play on keyboard than anything else. But man, I struggle with the movement sometimes, and because of that, I sometimes get hit stupidly on the fight. That's really all there is to it. So it's a cool fight. I wish there was some things different about it overall, but I like fighting it. I don't mind fighting it. And I definitely sometimes prefer to fight Dr. Call if I want a challenge. And if I want to get better at the game too, because I need to get better at the last phase. That some people can get through that phase effortlessly without getting a single hit, and I'm still over here like it's a roll of the dice. if I get hit 0 times or 3 times, it's just too much of a wild card for me. Well, that's basically the tier list here, so I'm gonna go take a look at it one more time, make some last minute changes, and I will get back to you guys. Okay, so I've made quite a few changes on the tier list because I wanted to make sure the order really was set into the way that I think this boss is more fun than this boss is more fun than this boss. But I want to go over just the drastic changes I made first, more than anything else. And then the order of the bosses are generally in the order that I think is what this boss is better than this boss. Like, I prefer fighting Rumor over Sally Stage Play, so that's why Rumor is in the head or in the lead of the Don't Mind Fighting tier. The first thing I gotta mention is I think I bumped up Werner, and that's because Werner is genuinely one of those fights where like I can play it any day of the week. I'm like, you know, if I want to just play some Cuphead, have a chill time, I pick Werner. I like going to Werner as like a very like mindless, okay, let's just beat a boss and like let's just show ourselves off, you know? And there's a lot of ways to express yourself during the fight that I think is underrated, even though there's not like so much skilled expression, like you're not doing like every single tech in the book, but you are doing some techniques and you are doing a lot of stuff that, you know, can make you feel like you're getting better at the game by pulling this off, like getting all your spread EX value and doing all your spread EXs perfectly during the transition to the Katzenwagen, or like dodging the flamethrower with a jump in EX, or like, you know, being able to get past these phases as fast as possible, getting all three parries and getting the whole S rank requirement, you know, beating all this on expert and beating the phases as fast as possible. They're all so rewarding on Werner. So I think Werner is genuinely a boss I enjoy fighting against, and I think I underrated it a little bit too much, and I wanted to make a statement here and say that I really do enjoy fighting Werner Vermin. I did also move Chef Saltbaker up too, because although I'm not a big fan of his 3rd and 4th phase, or his last phase and the phase before that, I think the whole fight in general is just so perfect and such a fight that I enjoy so much still, regardless of that like I still pick Chef Saltbaker sometimes when I'm like, I want to have a fun but difficult time, and I still pick Chef Saltbaker. I like getting better at it. I like beating the pepper shaker phase, or the second phase where you have to deal with all the peppers, sneezing at you and stuff. I really enjoy that. I like going through that process, even if at the end of the day I don't like going through the rest of the half as much. I still will go out of my way to fight Chef Saltbaker just for those 2 phases. That's how good they are, and that's how much I enjoy them. I still enjoy fighting against him, all things considered. I think everything else is more of just a matter of reordering the bosses to my liking. Like, I genuinely prefer the DLC bosses over a majority of the main Isle bosses. Like, Glumstone is just such a well-curated fight, and is so, like, has so much depth to it beyond what you might think on the surface, and I really appreciate that. Moonshine Mob is a cool boss that I think has some things I would change about it, but the music makes up for it, and I like the flow of the fight, so I don't really mind at the end of the day. But again, there's just some things that I'd rather play Gumstone than Moonshine Mob. Howling Aces is also a cool fight, and I don't think the last phase exactly loses its charm, but like I would say that the stuff that happens during like the phases of Glumstone and Moonshine are just cooler or more interesting than Howling Aces. I like beating Howling Ace's second phase though. I really like beating that. But first phase is cool, second phase is really cool, and then third phase just feels like I'm getting through it. Like, I don't think the third phase is anything too crazy, although it does add a very interesting mechanic in the screen turning and everything. It's just not enough for me to like think it's an amazing boss fight, like so amazing that it's above the other two or the other bosses in front of it. And everything else is really just a matter of ordering. I'm not going to go over all the different changes I made. I didn't really make that many changes, just slight ordering changes, that's really it. So yeah, I think that's the tier list, guys. If you agree or disagree with anything that you see, please leave a comment down below. I will surely read it. I always read the comments when I can. I'd like to have a conversation and just talk about the game with you guys. It's what I like to do most with this game. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. I'm going to leave it at that. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video too. It really does help out the channel. And I'll see you all in the next video.